you would like to share something personal and don't want it on there, just let me know. So let's sit tall. We'll close the eyes for a moment. Always grounding, always reestablishing presence, foundation, intention. And just notice that you are landing softly in this moment. Or maybe you're crash landing in this moment. I don't know. It's your experience. But whatever it is for you, whether it's the crash landing, the soft landing, or somewhere in between, just be aware of it. Allow your feet to touch the ground, your crown to touch the sky, and the space between those two to be integrated into a greater presence. And the more present you become, the more you land in this moment. Perhaps noticing that there is a truth there. There is a truth. There is a calling, a knowing. And it's not coming from outside of you. It's right there. The very heart of your being, the very center of yourself. And it says, if you wish to know me, then you need to let go of the rest. Let go of the half stories, the false beliefs, the ignorance, the violence, the harm, the doubt. Let go of the attachment. And when you stop relying so deeply on those things, then our relationship will bloom. And you will recognize that there is but one truth. And it is already established within you. It is already established within you. It is not outside of you. And just feel that to whatever degree that feels truthful to you, that feels real to you. And just notice if there's some part of you that is embracing that, understanding that, accepting that, and some part of you that is resisting it, that is saying, I don't know. But still attaching to the story, to the preference. And just recognize that that is the struggle, that therein lies the work. Be grateful for the work, be grateful for the truth, be grateful for all of it. Be grateful for the difficulty and for the ease. And know that this is the path. Whether things are coming to us or blowing away from us. This is the path. Draw the hands together in front of the heart. And let's open our session with an Om. Take a breath in. Om. And then placing the right hand on the heart, left hand over the right. And if you know this mantra, you can join in. It's a light and darkness mantra. Asatoma. Om asatoma satgamaya tamasoma jyotirgamaya mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om shanti shanti shanti. breath in, a breath out. And then releasing the hands and opening up the eyes. Good morning and welcome. Welcome. Good to see you all. Good to see you. Yeah. So this morning's talk, truth, SATYA. We talked about ahimsa last week, one of the yamas, the very first one, the establishment of nonviolence and the importance of that on our path. Understanding what nonviolence is and what it isn't and where it begins and where it ends, if in fact it does, which is questionable. And then once we have in place some level of understanding and practice of nonviolence in our life, whether it's through the choice of being a vegetarian, of walking more lightly upon the earth, of treating animals with kindness, even if we are meat eaters, right? So many places will say to you, you must be a vegetarian to be nonviolent. And I would suggest to you that there are many vegetarians who are extremely violent. So what you eat, not possibly as important as how you eat, how you have gratitude for the thing, how you honor what you have taken. Because you take all the time, so do I. We take from the sky when we breathe in and out. We take from the trees, we take from the earth. We're always taking. The question is, how are we taking? Are we greedy? Are we without gratitude? Are we fearful in our taking? Are we taking out of anger? Or are we taking only what we need? And recognizing that. And then also taking as a way of giving, so that when we take, we share. We don't just take and keep. There were a few people who were so surprised. I put a post up on Facebook talking about the gardens. I said, this year, the ashram is not really completely open, and the kitchen is not open. Maybe later in the year, I hope. But right now it's not, and it looks like our harvest season, all of our harvesting this summer, is not going to go to use in the kitchen like it typically would. And we harvest a lot of food. So it's all being donated to the hungry in Reading. And we're working with Cafe Esperanza, as we do every year, and they're distributing. Some people were surprised. They were like, you're working in the gardens all year to give it away? Why don't you sell it? I'm like, no. We take from the earth so that we can give to people who need. We work as a form of giving back as well. So once we become established in this understanding that nonviolence actually is part and parcel of every action, thought, word, intention that we have, then we can start to understand truth. We can begin to understand that, so the truth doesn't lie in me getting what I want. The truth doesn't lie in me having it all. The truth is not in a wasted harvest. The truth is best expressed when there is a sharing, a unity, a collaboration, a creativity that brings us together, doesn't separate us. And in my humble opinion, this is the core, the crux of the suffering in the world today, is that collaboration is suffering. It's missing. And for those who are trying to collaborate, who are working to collaborate, they're just hitting wall after wall after wall of greed and anger and hate and violence. And it makes it so difficult, so difficult. But the one anchor that we all have, that is already established within us, once we lift the veil of ignorance away from ourselves, is truth. The truth of the collaboration, the truth of unity, the truth of love, the truth of service, the truth of divinity, the truth that all is sacred. And if we allow that truth to be our empowerment, to be the reason why, we don't just go out and serve the world because it's the right thing to do. Sure, it is the right thing to do, but that's not a good enough reason, because the ego checks things into right and wrong categories. And if I say, well, it's the right thing to do, so I'm going to go do it, then I'm patting myself on the back saying, yay, you did the right thing. No. We do it because it's the only thing to do. It is the only thing that is aligned with truth. It is the only way that truth becomes known in my own heart and mind, freeing me to some small degree from the suffering that I will experience as a human being. Because when I'm aligned with that inner truth, I don't have to be dependent upon the lies and upon the play of the ego, at least not so much. Does that make sense? Yeah. So yes, we do it because it's the right thing, and initially that's what we attach to. We say it's the right thing. But the moment you say it's a right thing, then there's also something that's a wrong thing. And then once you start saying to people, well, you're the wrong thing, then we take their power away from them to change. So instead we say, I do this because it is the only thing. That's it. There's no other choice for me. No other choice for me. That's hard. Right? That's hard. It's hard because the ego wants to turn everything around into a circus and use it to its own benefit, to its own experience of being alive. There's the banjo. Cued right in on time. We have a bullfrog in the pond, and when we chant, every once in a while, you hear that, you know. And I was just reflecting before that it sounds like a banjo. So that's his name, Banjo. So truth, Satya. We can talk about it in very lofty, kind of eccentric ways. Say, you know, God is the only truth, goddess, whatever you call that. And it's true. But to just say that and to not have an understanding of how to live that, to not explore the cultivation of the ethics within ourselves, to actually have that relationship would be unfortunate. It would be a disservice to ourselves. Because then what path might we be led down but the path of fundamentalism, which is a very dangerous path where I'm right and you're wrong. And I'm so right and you're so wrong that I don't want you to be here. Yeah. It's a very, very dangerous path. And it is not a path of nonviolence. It is a path of violence. So it's not enough to just say, God is the only truth. We need in our humanness to investigate what exactly that means to us in this life. And that looks different for everybody. In the yoga tradition, we say we are each born with karma. And karma is not a punishment. It is actually a path of reconciliation. It's a way of living life, either one that deepens our suffering or one that works to alleviate it. Karma deepens our suffering when our actions don't align with that inner, already established truth. And we behave in ways that are violent, we behave in ways that are not truthful, we behave in ways that are greedy, angry, you put the word there. And then we acquire karma. And we suffer for that, unnecessarily, for the most part. Necessarily, maybe a little bit. And so we might find that it's very difficult to have faith. It's very difficult to even picture this greater collaboration, this greater creation, this greater unity. It's very difficult. And the difficulty of that, in some part, comes from the karma that we are working in this life to reconcile. And the moment that we reconcile that karma, then a window of opportunity opens, and there's the realization. And each and every one of us have probably had that experience where we struggled so much to know something. And then given a moment when we accepted our situation or what the actual solution for our situation was, there was an epiphany. There was a moment of realization, and then it was obvious. It was obvious. You ever have that? You struggle so much with a decision. But the moment that you accept it, it's like a burden falls off your shoulders. And it's like, okay, relief. And then 30 seconds later, the ego jumps in and says, what if? And it's like, you gotta shut that what if down. You're like, no. I'll stay with the relief for a while. The relief is the indication that I'm honoring my truth. Relief is the indication that I am proper in my thoughts, in my actions, in my words. Relief. True relief, which is the experience of the self that doesn't necessitate hurting someone else or hurting yourself. When we are making decisions based on ego, typically we will lash out at other people. We'll feel that we have to defend our position. We've all become very good warriors in that regard, right? We've had to defend a lot over the past few years. But at some point in time, we have to move from the defense only into the place of acceptance. And then it's no longer defense. It actually transforms or evolves or involves itself into just the way of being. Collaborative, unified, at one with the truth. I have a lot of respect for the Me Too movement. Being a person who can say Me Too, as I'm certain each and every one of you are. It was and is a moment where we saw segments of that community go in one direction and segments of that community go in another. There were segments of that community that went off into the direction of reconciliation. How do we now use this voice that we have found, that we have embraced, in order to support those who are suffering? And the other part of that community went in a different direction and said, now that I have this voice, I want there to be punishment. I want there to be vengeance. I want to scream at the top of my lungs until every single person has heard. And I want to destroy what attempted to destroy me. Some people would say, well, what's wrong with that? And now I'm going to segue a little bit and say my daughter is a huge Marvel fan. Right? Everybody here a Marvel fan? Everybody knows who Marvel is? Okay, cool. So she said to me, you can't watch Black Widow until you go back and watch the timeline. You have to watch the movies in their timeline. So she started me on this a while back so that by the time Black Widow came out, I would be able to watch it. Right? Before I'm like 80. Wow. So, needless to say, you get hooked on it, right? So, I think it was in Endgame, or the one before Endgame. What was the one before Endgame? It's like the big war, Infinity War. There you go. The Infinity War. It was a very interesting scene where these two bad guys, two bad aliens, I don't know, what do you want to call them? Two bad things, come down. And, yeah, I know, right? We're talking about aliens. But anyway, and they come down to attack, I think it was like Captain America or, a couple of the Avengers, right? And the Avengers fight them. And at the end of it, the Avengers get control, and the one looks at like the bad guy and says, I'm not going to kill you. I'm not even going to hurt you anymore. Does anybody remember that scene? It's pretty powerful. Because here they are in the midst of this war, which is like a huge karmic war. And they stop and they say, I'm not going to kill you. We're not going to hurt you anymore. And that was a moment of opportunity, right? Absolutely. Now, because the bad guy's mind was filled with ignorance, they continued. But we don't have to. We don't have to continue with the violence. We can recognize that it might be necessary to fight. But once established in our inner truth, we no longer need to fight with anger, with hatred, with separation, with I'm going to show you as my reason or intention for fighting. We can simply be that truth. And ultimately, that will lead us to a place where we can see and understand the struggle that all people are having in identifying with that truth. And we can start to have compassion. And in that scene, that's what I saw was compassion. I saw compassion, I saw example. And if you're like a Star Trek fan, you see that in there all the time, right? It's like it's painted right into the script of every show. There's this immense amount of battle going on, but then there's compassion. And there has to be compassion in the battle. If there's not, then it's just violence. We're probably not going to get away from the battle. Not as long as we're embodied. I pray we don't get away from the compassion. That we allow the compassion to guide us, to bring us to the place of greater understanding, so that we can all put our weapons down. And maybe together we can walk in that other direction of reconciliation, of understanding, of evolving our inner self, evolving our outer self, and having patience while others are evolving too. Does that make sense? Understanding that the truth is already established within you. Satya is within you. It's not something outside. You can't go read it in a book. I mean, you can, but odds are you're just going to compile some facts, It'll become another tchotchke. It's only when we accept that truth is already established, it's already got a foothold. The problem is we're letting invasive vines, climb around it and basically strangulating it. We're making it unrecognizable by the weeds that we are allowing to grow in the garden of our life. So we have to be mindful of what we plant. Weeds are very interesting. I don't really like calling them weeds. We say unintentional plantings. I didn't intend them to be there. We had a tree out front. And my husband, bless him, he would sit there and say to me, that's not the tree. And I would say, well, yeah, it is. And we're looking at this as we're out there weeding one day, And he's like, no, that's not the tree. He's like, I'm telling you, I'm going to dig it up and I'm going to show you. That's an imposter plant. And I was like, you're going to kill my plant, but okay, sure, go ahead. This is the struggle, isn't it, right? So what does he do? He goes in and he very carefully excavates this thing, which looks actually it's that plant right there, the first one. That is like a pussy willow kind of a tree. It was coming up in the middle of that. Linda, do you remember that?
I don't know.
The leaves were the exact same, maybe a smidge bigger and a smidge darker, but the shape and everything. He pulls it out. Darn it, it's an imposter plant. Then he goes on the internet and he searches and he comes back to me and he shows me. There's this weed that will find these plants because it looks like them. And it will try to make you think that it is them. And it actually is very cool. And then I felt a little bad, But really it would have ended up strangulating the original. So he took it out. And now it's like that was an imposter that we believed was, or I believed, was the actual. It happens all the time, repeated in nature, through us, in the trees, the bushes. We need to be careful as we're turning within, looking within, adhering to the already established truth that lies within ourselves, that no words, no scripture, the scriptures are very beautiful and helpful. But unless we are reading them and studying them with a heart that is intended on devotion, we will find something in there that we don't like. We will find something in there that we disagree with. We'll find something in there that will give cause to our resistance. There's nothing that any scripture says that isn't already established in your heart. The scripture is a reflection of your heart when it's seen in the purest of lights. But when that imposter weed sets its root in your heart right next to that truth, then that truth becomes very difficult to see. And over time, that weed becomes extremely difficult to manage. As a matter of fact, it takes over. It suffocates your view, your intellect, your insight, your intuition, until the truth appears to be lost at sea somewhere, far, far from here. And our life becomes about traveling everywhere to try to find it. Everywhere except for one place. Got to go inside and very carefully tend to that garden and extract that imposter and say bye-bye. Put it in the mulch or something, I don't know. But that's the work. That's the work. And it's very wonderful how the yoga world, in large part is talking about discovering your real self. Let go, detach, leave it all behind. Get rid of those people on Facebook. It's wonderful. It's silly. Because it's only giving you like a catchphrase. It's not saying to you, the weed isn't growing out there. The weed that is distracting you away from the inner truth is your weed. It's yours. You have to be the gardener. You have to be the one to go in and do the work that exposes that reality. That there is the imposter and then there is the truth. And until you do that work within yourself, all you're doing is pointing fingers. And it's not helpful. It's not helpful. Once we turn inward and we allow ourselves to commit to our inner gardening, then when we look out, we don't see where we can point the finger. You know what we see? Where we're needed, where we can support, where we can help, where we can give. And we go there. That requires faith. It requires faith. And not faith in dogma or faith in, it requires faith in the truth. SATYA. Faith in the truth. Faith in unity. Faith in our potential to be good to each other. Faith in our understanding that it's deepening always. It's never quite complete, but it's always getting deeper. And faith that the journey to that depth is worth it. Because what it will bring to us and what it will bring to those people around us and those other non-human beings around us and to the earth itself is goodness. Goodness that already exists within you. So we start with nonviolence. And from nonviolence, once we understand that nonviolence doesn't mean we're not going to have to battle. It means that the battle can be committed to in a way that is not angry or hateful. And that when it's time, stop fighting. Don't carry on for the sake of kicking them while they're down. Don't carry on for the sake of getting a little more. Don't carry on for the sake of adrenaline, excitement, drama. When the moment for compassion comes, be compassionate. Stop fighting. And even in your fighting, have compassion. What empowers us to do that is this understanding that the truth is not something outside of ourselves that someone else can give us. It's not something that I can give you. It's not something that you have to go to Machu Picchu to uncover. It's not in the, what was it with the, what was his name? The adventure guy, Indiana Jones and that gold box thing that he was always searching for in the movies. The Ark, thank you.
The Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I feel so...
No.
So not Hollywood, right? Yeah, the Ark of the Covenant. You know, it's not waiting there for you. It's just not. The Ark of the Covenant's right here. It's in your heart. And so, allowing ourselves to become established in that truth is what empowers our acts of ahimsa, our dedication to ahimsa, as well as our dedication to all the other yamas and niyamas. Non-stealing, non-grasping, cleanliness, contentment, discipline, all of them, self-study, all of them. So what are your thoughts or questions? And again, I am recording this, and if you don't wish to be on the record, then just let me know and I'll stop it.
I think that sometimes we leave the weeds. We don't want to pull them because we know that the truth they're covering is going to be painful, and we don't know if we're ready to deal with it yet, or there's work to be done there, and at that point, maybe you don't feel strong enough to do it.
Absolutely. You know, I had a very strange and interesting thought this morning, as I often do. I was walking in this door and I hit my knee. I hit my knee on the door. Man, there are two places in your body that you just shouldn't hit yourself, okay? One is the pinky toe, and the other is the knee, okay? And so as I'm sitting there and my knee has this reaction, you know, and I'm having a reaction to the reaction, I'm limping down the hall and I said to myself, this is painful. I wonder if death is as painful as this. Because what I could feel in that was the pulling apart, like the actual dismembering, right? Of the experience of pain and my body. And it was like, is that what death is like? Like dying? Is it more painful than this or less painful or the same kind of pain? That raises a fear, doesn't it? And it's like, oh, God, protect my knee now. I don't want to be thinking those thoughts. But that's the question that we go through our whole life with is, what am I ready to peel away? What am I ready to separate? What am I not too fearful to address? Because fear is absolutely what will stop us. It will bring us to a place of resistance, denial, and violent battling. But it also brings us to this very beautiful place of willingness and humility, if we allow it to. Fear is not unnecessary. It's part of what we experience in life, so it's got to have some necessity to it. Fear can cause us to be humble. But when we cower in our humility, that's an issue. But when we recognize, wow, that was a really painful moment, and it caused me to think about death, which is something that, we're all afraid of. Maybe I need to work with my physical pain more and my relation to that. Find out where the weeds are and strategically work with the ones I'm ready to work with. Yeah. It's true. It's true. And then sometimes, and here's the thing about like this whole karma picture, this whole spiritual picture, is sometimes those weeds are the point, aren't they? It's like, it's not just a matter of pulling out the weeds. I can see it, somebody on Facebook will make a meme and be like, pull out all the weeds. It's like, no. Don't just pull them out. It's everything you do, every act, every word, every thought, every intention, and how you follow through with it. When we took the weed out of there, certainly we wanted to take it out and make sure that it couldn't take root again. But we also didn't want to waste it. Right there, it has a purpose. It's food for the earth. It's mulch. It's whatever it can be. For us, when we're weeding our inner garden, it's lessons that we've learned. It's wisdom. It's clarity. So we don't just throw the weed and say, oh, you're useless. Bye. We say, thank you. You have taught me about my courage. You have taught me about my bravery. You've taught me about my fear. You've taught me about my ignorance. You've taught me about wisdom. You have been a good teacher. Thank you. But it is one step at a time. So patience. Tapas is the niyama, one of the niyamas, the 5 niyamas. It comes later, right? And once you start studying a lot of yoga, it might become obvious why discipline is so difficult. Some people say start with discipline. Start with tapas first. It's okay. Some people can. But many people can't. They don't understand the difference between power and force. And so they will force and think that that is tapas. Tapas is not force. Tapas is power. It's coming into your own power and recognizing I do have the tools necessary to remove that weed. And to do so with compassion. And to do so with understanding. I do have the ability to stop this battle right now, to stop hurting you, and to say to you, I no longer want to hurt you. I don't want to hurt you. I'm not going to hurt you. Yeah. It's a lot. Other thoughts or questions?
I was thinking about a court hearing that we had recently where we're fighting for justice in a certain situation. And it was a large group of us who were on one side of the courtroom, and the lawyer who was supporting the people that we were going against was on the other side. And the whole hearing, he was very spirited. His tone was very aggressive, and he even faced the other lawyer and went like this when the person was speaking, as like an equal person. And the way that our team reacted to all that fight, all that aggression and all that hatred, and the whole situation too was a very hateful situation that we're fighting. And it was just with such a light and compassionate spirit. I think the whole room was filled with such love and compassion. I mean, because of the hearing itself, we're fighting with compassion, which is why we're on our side and why he's not. But I was just thinking about how it's really helpful when you have people around you too, who are also compassionate and who are also facing those situations without hatred. Or, you can do it alone, but it's helpful to have people around you to support you. So,
Like-minded people.
Mm-hmm.
So we call that Sangha. And it is so important because yes, you can do it alone, but the problem is that once you're locked away with your own ego, it's a slippery slope. And Swami Shivananda and many of the other Swamis have said, these great saints and sages who go off and live in a cave somewhere and remove themselves from society, it's all fine and good, it's part of their path, but what good are they doing in the world? What good are they doing in the world? Going off and living in a cave is not your dharma. To be the love in the world is your dharma. To be the service in the world is your dharma. And so for that, we need to have people around us, supporting us, protecting us. That, and by protection, what I mean is substantiating the goodness in their words and actions that can be examples to us. This is a central concept in yoga, central concept. It's not that they tell you you're right. Hey man, you're right no matter whether you're wrong or right. No. They remind you. We're not here to fight against these people. We're here because love. We're here because there is no other way. And that's where the compassion unfolds. Absolutely. That's like, it gives me chills. Right? There is no other way. There is no other place to be. This is it. And thank you for your good work in community. Continue and never stop. Never stop. Yeah. I mean, Mother Teresa, I always love this story. When there was I think it was Vietnam War protest, one of her students came up to her and said, are you going to the protest, against the war, anti-war? She said, no, I won't be there. And they were surprised. What do you mean you won't be there, Mother Teresa? You're like... She said, no. She said, you're fighting against them. When you're fighting for something, I'll be there. It's all in the words. Well, isn't against the war the same thing as for peace? No, because when you get rid of one tyrant, another one will arise. So you have to know what you're going to fill that space with. That's what you're fighting for. That's what you're serving. You're not serving the annihilation of one person or one community of people. No. You're standing up for what is good and right and whole. Yeah. That's the only way. Otherwise, nature is wonderful. She has thought of everything. You create a niche and she will fill it. So if you leave a space there, I love, like in the movies, they always do that, right? They get rid of one tyrant and what happens? Another one comes in. Right? Because they didn't know. They didn't think, like, well, what are we going to do? But then every once in a while you see, like, I can't think of one right now, but I'm sure there's a movie out there where they did, replace a tyrant with something good, right? I don't know. I can't think of one of those movies right now, but I'm sure there's got to be one. Yeah. So we always have to know what we're standing for, and that has to be our first. Game of Thrones. There you go. Absolutely. Yes, Game of Thrones. Sansa. Sansa. That's my puppy's name. Sansa. But in Game of Thrones, yeah, that which is wicked was brought to an end. And it was replaced with something good. Yeah. Any other thoughts or questions? Yeah. Let's see how we time-wise. Oh, we still have a few minutes. So Satya, truth. I'm watching that little bird. See it up there? Oh, it's like, it's right over the ashram. Some of you who are sitting tall might be able to see her. Maybe she'll come back around again. She's just hanging out with the wind, She's just flying around up there. Just having a blast. Appreciating. I think when you got here, Cindy, there was a bird that was flying in front of your car. I saw you watching her. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and she was just like, looking for insects, sure, but she wasn't like, oh my gosh, there's a horde of worms. I'm going to go get them all. No. She was doing what she needed to do while she was also playing and interacting with the wind, and they do that. Some of these birds, they eat insects like dragonflies, right? And the dragonflies eat other insects too. But when they're on the hill in the back around this time of year, they're just all playing together. I've stood in the middle of them when they're not eating each other. It's actually quite beautiful. The birds are flying and the dragonflies and the other bugs are out there. Sometimes it gets a little toward dusk and the lightning bugs show up too. And it's just like, look at them all harmonized together, you know? It's a beautiful thing, and that can be the potential. It is the potential, is that we can have what we need, and we can also have enjoyment. But what we need to understand in order to be able to cohabitate like that is that behaving and living in violence, adhering to untruths about ourselves and others, being led around by an unhealthy ego or series of egos, it will cause us to attack each other, not dance with each other. It'll cause us to take from each other, not give. You will always be the prey and the predator, not the sangha. We have a lot to learn. And investigating truth on a multitude of levels. And you know, this is a very kind of practical conversation. We could sit here and start talking about the Bhagavad Gita and what Krishna says about the truth and think of me only and then you will come to me. And this is true, we could talk about that. But we have to understand something else first before we just jump into that. We need to understand where in our life we're denying the basic truth of our goodness, where we're acting against that. And then as we explore that, then we begin to understand those words. Some people say, oh, yoga is a cult, blah, 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 blah. You know, it's like, no. When Krishna says, just think of me, and you will come to me. When Christ says that, when Durga says that, when it's in whatever scripture it is that you're reading, there's no need to be anti-religious or anti-spiritual or to start throwing around, you know, insults like cult. What it's actually saying is, I am established in the truth of love. You can be too. And when we are both established in that truth, then love will be our guiding principle. Your suffering will be different. Your happiness will be different. Your contentment will be different. Your experience of life in general will be different. So Krishna is saying, I am established in love. He's saying, I am love. Durga Ma, Lakshmi Ma. That's what they're saying. When they say, come to me, they say, come to love. Don't turn away from it. Come to the truth. Don't turn away from it. Stand for something, not against. Love isn't against anything. Love says, there's enough space here for everyone. The dogs, you know, I go to pet Sunset, Marika comes running over. I go to pet the cat, and everybody else comes running over. And it's like, I'm like, it's okay, there's enough love for all of you. But inevitably, one will be like, no, me first. It's very human of them. Wonder where they learned it from. Yeah. So let's sit tall, close the eyes. And just feeling the physical body grounded, whatever is touching the earth beneath you, rooted down. Connect with that earth foundation. And in the same moment, feel that the top of the head is connected to the sky and beyond. And that the body is aligned physically. And that you could sit here for a long time and just be content, full of compassion, full of love, grounded in the truth of your being, the truth of goodness, the truth of the potential we carry. And as you breathe in, recognize all that you receive, what you take from the earth, from the trees, from the air itself. See it all as a gift. And as you breathe out, share all you've been given with all those around you, human and non-human. Just continually give, because you know that giving is service. And that service, when done with an open, pure heart, will free you and bring others great happiness by alleviating their suffering. Every breath in is a receiving, every breath out is a gift, an acknowledgement, a gratitude. And then bring your awareness to the center of your heart, the very core of your being, and recognize the truth that's growing there. It's already established, but your awareness allows it to become bigger, more profound, more obvious. Let every action, every word, every intention, every thought, every moment be devoted to that truth. Drawing the hands together in front of the heart. And we'll lift our voices in one Om, one peace mantra if you know it, and then the Loka mantra. Take a breath in. Asatoma satkamaya, tamasoma jyotirgamaya, mrityorma amritam gamaya. Om shanti shanti shanti. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. Om shanti shanti shanti. Hari Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Hari Om. Lead us from the darkness to the light. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. May all beings everywhere be free from suffering and happy. And to all the teachers throughout time, we are so grateful. Bowing the head to the heart, acknowledging all that is. Drawing the face to center. Hari Om. Thank you all so much for being here today. So good to see you. So good to be with you. Thank you for coming together this morning. So for those staying for Yin, we will be under the tent. So I'll see you up there in about 15 minutes.